Coming up on today's show.
Primarily, I've learned about so many things from my ADHD clients, but goal setting is really difficult for them. So I'm so glad we have the opportunity to share some ideas with them today.
Sometimes people say, well, you should set goals whenever you're ready to launch on a project. It doesn't have to be the first of the year, but
I kind of think about routines as the mile markers for the goals for a lot of people. Like they think it's a series of tasks and those tasks lead to completion. And that's not always the best strategy for people with ADHD.
Setting goals for people with ADHD. Today on Keeping You Organized. Welcome to Keeping You Organized. Today we are going to talk about goal setting because it's that time of year. And, you should always be setting goals, even if it's not the beginning of the year. But we're going to talk about this from a little bit different angle because a lot of people out there have ADHD. Now, when I think about ADHD, other than thinking about like myself sometimes, I think about the person who deals with it with her clients all the time. And that's Ellen DeLapp, professional-organizer.com. Ellen, welcome back to Keeping You Organized.
Well, thanks, John. I'm super excited to be here with you all today.
Good. I know this is one of your specialties, and I know when we talked a while back about what we should do for this show, it's like this was a perfect connection because you work right with a lot of ADHD clients.
Yes, primarily I've learned about so many things from my ADHD clients, but goal setting is really difficult for them. So I'm so glad we have the opportunity to share some ideas with them today.
Good. Yeah. And, some of this might apply to people who don't, but, have ADHD, but it's goal setting is really key to just like getting organized because it's the big picture, right? So how do you want to approach this with setting goals for ADHD people?
Well, I definitely want to set people up for success. So I want to talk about what goal setting isn't to start with, because I feel like there's such a clamor in the beginning of the year and throughout the year about productivity that we want to set ourselves up for success. So thinking about the ways to make that happen for my clients with ADHD today. I'd love to chat with you about that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good concept because, sometimes people say, well, you should set goals whenever you're ready to launch on a project. It doesn't have to be the first of the year, but, there's so much about, it's go month in January. Everyone's really focused on getting organized. So let's dig in. How do you want to start with this?
Well, routines are one of the hardest things for people with ADHD. And that's where people often have their little fatal flaw with setting goals because they think it's something they have to do consistently, which is the most difficult part for my clients with ADHD. So I do take a little bit different focus with that. And I think at this time of year, things are really interesting and novel. And that's a real draw for my clients with ADHD, but that kind of wears out kind of early on in the year. Have you noticed how many people talk about, the gym is packed right now, but in like 3 weeks, it's going to be pretty empty?
Yeah.
So
who was it, Leanne or one of the other professional organizers about the gym? It was great, a great business to start in January and then convert it to a wine bar in February. Leanne, who was that anyway? Leanne saw that online. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Now
idea. I'm thinking about routines. When I think about routines, I'm thinking down, to the daily tasks, which are things that, are difficult to do, I think. But, if we're back up at the higher goal setting level, how do those two relate kind of? I mean, I know that in order to achieve a goal, you have to have some routines in place. So how do you want to dig into that?
So I kind of think about routines as the mile markers for the goals for a lot of people. Like they think it's a series of tasks and those tasks lead to completion. And that's not always the best strategy for people with ADHD. Yes, we need to have goals and have tasks, but I frame them in context more than just checking off a box, so to speak, because checking off the box is what's really hard. So the context keeps those goals, and that's what we're going to talk about when we talk about how we're going to reframe the concept of goals for people with ADHD. So kind of not only that connection, but also what's the bigger picture? Like you're saying, step back from it. What's the big picture of what we want to accomplish? And if we don't do it step by step, what's the creative, resourceful way that we're going to get that accomplished? And that's often that's where our strengths really lie for clients with ADHD.
Yeah, when I think about setting goals, again, it's bigger. It's like, hey, I would like to lose 5 pounds or 10, whatever it is. But then, do ADHD clients can they think big and dream big without getting caught up in like exactly how am I going to do this? Where they might.
That's totally their superpower, actually.
Okay. Oh,
And
great.
often I find my big picture thinkers, that's when sometimes they get mired in, like, there's a lot of over complex thinking. And you see that all the time on Facebook too, Leanne, where people are like overthinking these little routines as opposed to thinking big picture. So often that's like a flaw. And going back to that bigger picture helps so much.
Right. Now, I would think that having, setting goals, there's probably some kind of limitations you have to do because, you could probably set way too many goals, right? I mean, so how do you hone it down?
Right. So I think that's actually another like fatal flaw for people is being overly ambitious, I like to say. Setting too many goals that are unrealistic. And so we have too many new things that sound so interesting to get started at the same time. So kind of thinking about a little bit about limits and how many things we can accomplish at the same time. And again, it goes into that context. What I find with most of my clients is their core values are really driving these goals. An example is a connection thing. Like some of my clients, I want to be more connected to people I love and my friends. So they think I should call them every week so that I stay in touch with them. And then in addition, I want to write them a thank you note every single time that I want to tell them how grateful I am. And then I also want to be sure that I send special invitations to people to come to religious ceremonies with me that are upcoming this year. So right away, we have like 5 or 6 big goals that kind of be culled down to one bigger picture thing. So yeah, so being overly ambitious can lead to not only a lot of stress, but not accomplishing your goals.
Right. Okay. Well, we're going to take a break now. When we come back, I want to say, okay, let's say we've narrowed it down. I want to figure out how we go from that point to actually coming up with the plan of attack. So we'll do that when we come back with Ellen DeLapp. We're talking about, getting organized and setting goals for someone with ADHD. And we'll be right back.
Get organized now at myorganize.life. Need to turn those piles into files? We've got you covered. Hundreds of organizing products in a dazzling array of colors and sizes. There's an organizing solution for you. Shop online and they're delivered right to your office. Get organized now. Go to myorganize.life. That's myorganize.life. Get organized now at myorganize.life.
We're back now on Keeping You Organized, talking about setting goals for people with ADHD. And before the break, we were just talking about some of the preliminary things that our guest, Ellen DeLapp here, professional-organizer.com, deals with when she's working with clients on goal setting. And the little reveal before the break, Ellen, was that the ADHD people are dreamers. They can think the big picture goals, but maybe too many. So we're going to try to be not as ambitious, try to narrow it down. So how do we take it from that step? Say we've gotten our 3 or 4 main goals. What do we do next?
So I love the idea of putting out intentions through like a theme or a word of the year. And you're seeing that a lot on social media right now, is where people are really cultivating 1, 2, or 3 words that have so much depth of meaning and so much impact that they want to have on their effect this year. So they're kind of like guiding principles as opposed to really specific, I need to do this on a certain day once a week. And those guiding principles kind of come from a very holistic approach, kind of that big picture we were talking about earlier, that have to do with self-awareness and creating new perspectives. And sometimes just having a word, which is that big picture to accomplish, makes really the success that you want. So it's less about being perfect and checking off the box as keeping within the context of my big picture of my word of the year.
So now, are you saying that someone who maybe has 3 or 4 goals might have an one word that would cover, that would trickle down to those 4 goals? Or is it like a word per goal? Or kind of how do you, or is it just instead of a really definitive goal, you're using a word? I mean, explain that a little bit.
I love exactly how you have captured this for me, John. Thank you. So you're right. So the one word might be the complete context, like we were talking about relationships earlier or connections.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be the synthesis of the complete context of where I want to touch more people for the year. Or it might be 3 words, because I think it's very hard for my clients with ADHD to come down to really one big goal for the year. So their word might be, one of my colleagues is purposeful. And so be more intentional about what they're putting out into the world and create that pause that helps them do better and do the kind of work they want to do. So I love the idea of one word that really encapsulates the bigger picture, or 3 words that come together that make meaning for what your intentions of the year are going to be.
Right. I think too, you see this in corporations, they might, come up with a mission statement or whatever. Then they have like maybe 3 words that are kind of their guiding principles. And then, then those trickle down into, well, how are we actually going to achieve those? Let's come back to the words in a little bit, but I want to still get to this point of, let's say we've got a goal and or a word or a combinations of words. When you're working with your ADHD clients, what's the next level below that? What are the action plans or the kinds of things you're laying out for them or with them to help them achieve that?
Well, there's a couple things we can do. First of all, we want to make it super visual because we want to keep that word uppermost all year long. So some of my clients are drawn to vision boards where they're really purposefully investigating what does that word mean and what does that feel like or look like. Some of my clients, we're going directly into what does each month look like and where is that going to be placed in a physical part of their week where they're allotting time to things that really fulfill that word. So it really depends on where that person wants to take the next step and how specific and tactical they want to be about that, incorporating that concept into their world.
Is there also something you can do? I know a lot of times in goal setting, you have kind of quantitative and qualitative, and you could have either, but how would you measure with somebody, a client, like saying, well, okay, this is what you kind of want to accomplish a year from now. Here's what it might look like. Is there a way you can illustrate that at all? Kind of work with them on that?
I love just the little notes app in our phones. All of my clients are really drawn to that. And so a little capture tool like that can help you not only remember and set a note to remind you about that, an audible note, but also kind of tally in the week. So we have like a weekly review that I suggest with my clients too. And have we hit that mark every week? And so I definitely think a quantitative, my clients love the quantitative and they want to know, am I accomplishing what I set out to accomplish? So keeping a list in your notes app, or even just tallying, like during your weekly review. I talk a lot about that with my clients, is setting themselves up for success by taking this really big picture of what did I accomplish this week. So tallying weekly, I think, is very valuable for my clients.
Great, great. Now, do you have any other examples of those theme words? Like, do you have a word for yourself this year?
I do have a word for myself. Well, last year my word was shift, because many of you know I'm very involved with my national association, NAPO, and I was coming out of the role of president to past president and really re-emphasizing my commitment to working with my ADHD clients and going further in my education for them, for my learning, what I can share with them. So that shift led me to the word of the year is expand. So I definitely want to expand on my client base with virtual organizing. And also I want to continue to expand my knowledge base of what I need to know to help my clients do their best and live their purposeful life that is so important to them.
Great. And have you, so let me put you on the spot here. What have you taken now from that word or that goal, and what are some of your action steps below that, maybe that you're going to try to approach? Have you taken it that far yet and actually come up with maybe some tactics?
It's a very lofty goal, John.
Yes.
I'm gonna share it with you. It makes me a little nervous.
I'm just trying to keep you accountable right now. That's all.
I know. I will be hearing from you and Leanne probably later this year. How's it going?
Yeah.
My goal is to put out 20 mini videos on YouTube. And of course, I'll link back to this one so
Awesome.
that I can share tips with people for easy access about little easy ADHD tips for people.
Yeah, I think that's a great plan, and I think you are gonna expand as a result of that. It is a lot of work though, and that's where it's like, okay, now I know what I need to do. Now I need to do it, and getting that in a calendar or whatever is the next step. So okay. We're out of time for this episode, but I'm still love this concept of the word theme, and I'd like to do another show on that. Can you come back next time and let's talk about word themes?
I would love to. That'd be wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So before we go, let people know what you're up to and how they can get a hold of you.
So my website is professional-organizer.com. I'm a certified professional organizer, but I love social media, and I would love to connect to you with Instagram. My tag name there is Ellen Delap, CPO, and then also on Facebook as professional-organizer.com, and on LinkedIn as Ellen Delap, because I'm working more and more on the productivity side as well. So I love connecting with people and answering questions for them.
Awesome. That's great, Ellen. And so you're already expanding, adding LinkedIn and some of these other things. This is great. But I can't wait until our next episode, because we're going to talk about those theme words, because a lot of people are talking about that right now. And I think it's going to be a great topic. So we'll have you back then.
Thanks so much, Sean.
Okay, well, for those of you with ADHD, hopefully you got some good tips on the goal setting part of it and the importance of those theme words. For those that are intrigued about those theme words, make sure you come back for our next episode of Keeping You Organized.